Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started this morning. Welcome to the 2025 Utah Assistive Technology Teams Conference here at the beautiful Zines Technology Center. My name is Travis Chamberlain. I'm an occupational therapist serving on the Leadership Council this year. I work in Weber School District, and I'm a co-leader for my team. We're excited to see so many people here today. I think we had about 400 tickets go out entirely. We had about 350 for in-person and an additional 50 that went out there with virtual options. So we're grateful to see so many people here today. Yesterday afternoon, the 30 plus UAT teams across the state, we met together with Paige Buckingham, where she explored the influence of executive functioning skills with AAC use. And I personally found a lot of that information very helpful, especially the communication matrix levels. Her presentation from yesterday is online, so you can access that. And I'm looking forward to learning more from Paige today. As far as some general housekeeping information, the bathrooms are here to my right, or to your left, it's just on the other side here of the stairs. Our classrooms are concentrated here in this area. We have the Beehive and Lone Star classrooms right here. And then if you have a classroom for training, that's in the very back area. You'll go through one of these corridors here to access that classroom there. And then this room is the all hands room. If you're looking for Wi-Fi, there is complimentary Wi-Fi here. The password is unique gold folklore. I've seen it a couple different places on the electronic signs, whatnot, but if you're looking for that, the password again is unique space gold space folklore, and that's on the Zines Wi-Fi. I'd like to be able to acknowledge a lot of the efforts and energies that came from UAT Central to be able to put this conference together for us. We have Kent Rumond, Austin Oseguera, Julia Pierce, and Susanna Aguinaga who have helped us out. We also have the leadership team. Leadership comes from across the 6 different regions of our state. And currently on our rotation, we have Angela Durant, Tasha Lewis, Becca Powell, Marcy Mitchell, and Jason Udi who are helping out. Those who recently rotated off Leadership Council include Jody Lynn Beck, Stephen Duke, and Chris Ann Lewis, and Robert Woodbury. Many of them are the ones who actually came up with the Star Wars theme, and we hope you actually enjoy this theme very much. There's a lot of fun buttons out there that you'll be able to collect in each of your sessions, so make sure you get your swag. We're thankful for those who are presenting the breakout sessions today. Many of them are the UAT team leaders, and so we acknowledge their efforts and energies to be able to put together presentations. We're thankful for the room facilitators who will also provide an introduction, monitor time, and we ask that during the question and answer session portions that you please use the microphones so that all the virtual participants can hear the questions. There's no ASHA CEUs, but there is Midas credit available. There is a QR code up here at the front that you can scan to be able to get those Midas credits. And there's also a QR code up here at the front if you're looking for a certificate of attendance. Lastly, I want to thank you for being here and showing interest in assistive technology. Hope that you find some things today that you can help implement with the students who you work with, and you can be able to share the information with your team members or other staff who may not be here today. I hope that you may be able to really change the lives with individuals who use assistive technology. On a side note yesterday, I had a great day yesterday just learning about the different ways to improve my skill set as a technology practitioner. And I've been thinking that I've been doing this therapy thing now for 20 years, and I've been doing technology right along with it the entire time. And I really can't imagine what life would be like in my career without having assistive technology. Been able to affect a lot of people, as you guys have as well. And it's kind of hard to think that within our current rhetoric going on across our nation, just the idea of cutting different federal programs. I sure hope that assistive technology is one of those things that we can keep around. I truly believe it's helped a lot of people who I've worked with. It's part of who I am as a practitioner, and I hope that you guys feel that way as well. So I hope that as you go back to your schools and talk with different individuals who make decisions, that you can share just the power of assistive technology and what it does for our students. I'm excited to welcome our keynote speaker, turn the time over to Paige Buckingham.
Thank you. Well, I put a note here for myself that we're going to take a quick selfie before I forget. So I'm going to get my camera out and kind of veer this way so I get the group over here, but I need everyone to smile for me. Hi, buddy. All right, there we go. That was my to-do. I had a note to do 2 things, and I have done those things this morning, so I guess I'm done. So thank you all for having me. How many people were here yesterday? Okay, great. How many people are new here today? Okay, wow, so about even. Well, great. Well, my name is Paige Buckingham, and I am from Kansas. So I'm going to show you this real quick. I'll do this. Whoops. So while you all have these beautiful mountains, I live in a state that is been scientifically proven as flat as a pancake, that as far as the ratios go and everything. But within that, I find a different kind of beauty. So we have an area in Kansas called the Flint Hills, and there are hills, but the tops of them are not hilled. They are flat, and they're made out of flint, so the only thing that grows on them is there's very few trees. The only thing that grows on them is grass, and so there are a lot of cattle. There's that's where the buffalo used to roam and those kinds of things. So I'm excited to be here. Somebody asked me if I felt claustrophobic being here because I don't typically, sorry, I'm going to need some glasses to be able to see what I'm doing, because I don't typically live in an area that has lots of hills, and I just find it very, very beautiful. So if you haven't looked and paid attention to your beautiful mountains today, pay attention to them for just a couple minutes, because not everyone has the beauty of that. So a little bit about me. Like I said, live in Kansas. I live in Lawrence, Kansas. Does anybody know what Lawrence, Kansas is known for? Kansas Jayhawks basketball, yes. So I did not attend the University of Kansas. I actually attended Baylor University in Texas. Do I have anybody here from Texas? Ever in Texas? Okay. Okay, so this is my family. That is my husband. We have been married 33 years. Actually, today, we started dating 37 years ago today. So, and I still like him, which is the really great thing. So he came with me earlier this weekend. We flew in on Saturday, and I feel like I've had a good Salt Lake City experience. We went to Park City. We ate at the Trolley Square with a friend of mine that I grew up with. I saw the painted whale. Does that mean anything? Yes. We drove by East High School. We went to the Capitol and took a picture. We went to the Olympic Village. Last night we ate at the Red Iguana, which was unbelievable. I will say, I lived in Texas for 7 years, probably some of the best Mexican food I've ever had. It was fantastic. So I feel like I've had a good Salt Lake City experience for as long as I've been here. So I went to Baylor University, where I got my degree undergrad in speech pathology and my master's in speech pathology. I then lived and worked. My husband and I got married, lived and worked in the Houston area, where I worked at a regional day school for the deaf. And then we moved to Nebraska. So we moved from a city with 3 million people to a state with 3 million cows. And my insurance at the time, when I called to get my insurance changed, they were like, this can't be right. and they said, your insurance has dropped 10%. And I was like, oh no, it's right. I am more likely to hit a cow than hit a person where we're going. So anyway, so we moved to Nebraska to a community named Hastings, which is a community of about 23,000 people in the middle of a cornfield, and had this wonderful experience there. It was great, but jobs took us out of the area and took us to Lawrence, where we have lived for the last 25 years. So I am kind of a Kansas born and bred girl. I grew up in Kansas City, outside of Kansas City. I am a Kansas City Chiefs fan, and so it was a little sad this year, but you know, other people have to win, so we're okay with that. So anyway, so that's a little bit about me. Those are my children, the ones with the dark hair. So my son is on the, it'll be your left side, and his wife, and you can't see in her arms in that picture, but our grand puppy. And then my daughter has the curly hair and looks just like me. And she and her husband are both teachers. And so that is our family. So that was at Christmas this year. So professionally, so I'm a speech pathologist by training. I worked in the schools for 32 years. I worked as a speech pathologist and then as an assistive technology specialist and special education facilitator supporting all related service providers, the dynamic learning maps. Do you do dynamic learning maps in Utah? Yeah, the dynamic learning maps alternate assessment in my school district and lots of other things. And so when I retired in 22, I decided to start my own business because I'm not good at being retired. I'm like really bad at being retired. So I always tell people I failed retirement like really, really badly because I work as much now, if not more, but it's so different. So anyway, so I have my company and, but then I also work for an organization similar to UAT in the state of Kansas. So I work part-time for them. It's called Kansas Infinitech. And I am the lead assistive technology facilitator for the state of Kansas and help build assistive technology teams throughout the state. So I do those things in conjunction. That is my email address for work. So I had a number of people yesterday put on the question, how can we get you to come talk to our district? Give me shoot me an email. If you want to set up a meeting with me, I'd be happy to. If you want to set up a meeting with somebody who actually makes those decisions, because I get it, we aren't always the ones to make decisions, I'd be happy to talk to somebody. My website also has some information about different trainings and presentations I do, and also resources. So I wanted to share that with you. I do also have a YouTube page and Instagram that I post some things like I'll be posting the picture from today. So let me really quickly show you. Again, I need glasses on for this. These are great bifocals because there's nothing at the top. Okay. All right. So on my website, if you go to resources, you will scroll down to the Utah Assistive Technology Teams Conference, and it is password protected. I should be able to get in, but you will go in and put in the password Utah, okay? Capital Utah. And all the resources and information I'm talking about today and yesterday are on here. So the information from yesterday, today, here are the slides. I'll be honest, I changed a few of them this morning at 7:55. So there's a few little different ones, but there's the slides. The session this afternoon as we talk through things, all of those things are here. So you have access to all of that. Also on my resources page are links to a lot of different things. So link to the YouTube page, some different downloads that I have. I was talking the other day about a blurting plan. Whoops, where is it? So here's the blurting fading plan. So lots of different resources and checklists and different things on that. So feel free to go to that and share that information with other people. I just have it password protected so that it's not out there totally available to everybody, but please feel free to share it with your teams. Okay, so that's about me professionally. Okay, well, I just did that. Okay, so there we go. P. Buckingham, so just like the palace. And again, the password is Utah. All right, so where are my speech pathologists? Okay, great, wonderful, wonderful. right? The club. I was the other day, so you may see me walking around with a cane some today. I had a hip replacement a little over 2 months ago, and during my hip replacement, my femur was fractured. And so I was 6 weeks non-weight bearing. So I've only been walking for about 3 weeks. And so I'm still don't have the stamina. So you may see me in longer distances walking with a cane. But as I told the group yesterday, that's what assistive technology is, right? We use it when we need it. It is the decision of the person using it, when they use it, how they use it, and to what extent, when they maybe don't need it anymore. So anyway, so speech paths, where are the OTs? Okay, good. PTs? I know we have at least one. Yep, there's my PT. Any other PTs? All right, yes. So my PT was like, use the cane, Paige, use the cane, right? General ed teachers. Do we have any general ed teachers? No, okay. Well, you're going to want to share this information with your general ed teachers, I promise. So when I started doing this, I actually did it for special education staff. And I then had more and more special education staff take information back to their districts and say, everybody needs to hear this. And so I've actually started doing this for school districts with general education teachers involved, and have a really positive response from them. The group that has surprised me the most is high school coaches are like, oh my gosh, yes, we see this all the time. So, okay, special education teachers. Okay, administrators. Deaf ed teachers. Vision. Adaptive PE, school psychologists. Anybody else I didn't name? Parents, where are my parents? Do we have any consumers of assistive technology besides myself right now? Yeah. Okay, great, wonderful, thank you. So these are our official objectives for today. If you are a speech pathologist, occupational therapist, physical therapist, and run on a different license than what other people do and want information to go along with your certificate, send me an email and I will put a blip together that I know, at least in Kansas and in Nebraska when I was there, if you get audited, that's the information they want to see, which would be like the objectives and those kinds of things. So these are our objectives for the day. We're going to basically talk about executive function skills and how it impacts behavior. And my group yesterday already saw this, but these are my real objectives, that you're going to learn something new or think differently about something you know. I am not going to share anything with you today that you probably don't already know. I just want to challenge you to think differently about it, or use it in a different way, maybe put an executive function lens on something you already do. So that's really what my goal is. And I always say, and make a new friend. You guys are the AT core in Utah, which is so exciting, but you guys may not really know each other. You may have seen each other on calls or something together. As I said yesterday, I had the opportunity to meet Julia in at Closing the Gap, but I hadn't met Austin in person. So all of our interactions had been online. So it was fun to see him and go, hey, and it was kind of this awkward, do we hug? Do we hold hands? Not hold hands, not hold hands, but do we shake hands? How do we do this? Because I know him. I mean, I feel like, yeah, I know him, but I hadn't met him in person. So that's the goal. And again, that what we talk about today, you will take back to the classroom tomorrow, not tomorrow because you're here, but next week, and be able to do one thing. I do want to bring up, as I talk about this, I am talking about executive function skills based on Western culture. So if you're involved with a community that has people from other cultures, ask people in that community, what does this look like in your community? So just be aware of that. I've had people ask me to add information about different cultures to it. But there's not a lot of research out there. And I don't feel, honestly, that I'm the best person to talk about it because I don't live in those communities. So ask people in those communities, hey, what does time management look like in your community? Hey, what does response inhibition look like in your community? And have those honest conversations with them. So there's a Harvard study that talks about executive functioning skills being the air traffic control system of the brain. And when we are all born with the potential of developing executive functioning skills. So where yesterday we really focused on individuals with complex communication needs and complex bodies, today we're just going to talk more about general population, although put this with the students you work with. So if you have a student who has more complex needs, a student with autism, a student with Down syndrome, a student who may have a diagnosis that you only heard about in grad school and never thought you would actually, have a student with that, still, every individual is born with the potential to learn executive functioning skills, but it's based on our experiences. So if we haven't had experiences to learn executive function skills, we're not going to have them. So one of the things when I do this as a full day training, I do a little section talking about technology and the impact of technology on executive functioning skills. We are an assistive technology group. We love technology, right? Technology is a good thing most of the time, right? But the way technology is being consumed as an all-the-time presence is really impacting executive function skills and is impacting the way that people's brains are working. So just pay attention to that. And if you want more information on that, again, feel free to email me and I will send you some of that information. So why are we talking about executive function skills? So I went through the Utah state standards and found, where are my early childhood folks? Got some early childhood folks. Okay, where are my high school age? Well, not age, high school support folks. Okay, well, high school age maybe. So the Utah core standards in early learning have a section called Strand 1, and it says self-regulation and executive functioning. This is in your state standards, right? So why talk about this? Well, it's a state standard. We need to be talking about this. And then I looked, and it isn't as specifically named in elementary through middle school, although it's woven in, and you can, if you know it's talking about executive function skills, you can find it. But at the 9th through 12th grade level in the health education, again, Strand 1, it talks about goal setting and decision making, and underneath that it says decision-making strategies to a health-related choice and defend the decision, discuss practical self-control such as delaying immediate gratification, resisting negative peer pressure, and avoiding risks and impulsive behavior. That's executive functioning, right? It's what you all did today to get here is executive functioning. Here's some other information on executive functioning, because I have people tell me, well, we don't have time to do this. And here's my answer. You don't have time not to do this, okay? So research is actually showing, Harvard says explicit efforts to foster executive function have positive influence on instilling early literacy and numeracy. So executive functioning skills are going to support reading and math, even if you don't do anything different in reading and math, just working on executive functioning skills. So when people are saying, what's wrong with our schools are falling apart, what's going on? I'll tell you what it is. We're not focusing on executive functioning skills. We're focusing on the reading, we're focusing on the math, and those things are very, very important, but we're not focusing on the core foundation, which is the executive function skills that you must have in order to do those things. And so there's 3 core executive function skills that are critical for reading comprehension: working memory, cognitive flexibility, and response inhibition. So if you do not have those skills, you're going to have difficulty with reading. When we go over to the purple box, from 1st grade on, executive functioning contributes to reading comprehension. So again, we need this to support reading. And the last one, the International Dyslexia Association identifies executive function processes as critical to learning to read, specifically in the preschool years. So if you're talking to people and they're like, we don't have time to do this, yeah, you do. And by doing this, you're actually going to increase and support other areas. So this graphic is from the website Indeed.com. Anybody familiar with Indeed? Is Indeed an educational website? No, it's a job website. So there is actually an article on Indeed about the importance of executive functioning skills and why we need executive functioning skills in the workplace. And one of the situations that we're running into and that they're really talking about in the workplace is a lack of executive function skills among people that they're hiring, who show up late for meetings, late for interviews, bring their parents with them because their parents are their executive functioning skills, right? They are having difficulty with working memory, with flexibility, with response inhibition, with emotional control. When things don't go my way, I'm going to throw a fit, those kinds of things. And it's because we can teach teach people the skills they need for a job. But if you don't have these skills that we used to call soft skills, it's going to kind of be hard to not only get a job, but to keep a job when you have it. I actually talked to a gentleman the other day who has some pretty significant executive dysfunction issues. And he told me that he's rarely able to keep a job more than 6 months at a time. And he said, it's because I get frustrated about something and have almost a panic attack feeling that then causes me to become very vocal and physical and basically have emotional regulation problems. And he said, and I can tell it's getting ready to happen again in my job, and I think I'm getting ready to be fired. And so that just broke my heart because he knows what it is, but he didn't have the skill set to be able to improve it. Another reason we talk about executive functioning skills, is anybody familiar with what this is? Where does this come from? Okay, this is Universal Design for Learning, UDL. These are the UDL principles. So the UDL principles are developed by CAST, and you can go on their website to find them. And this summer, I think it was in June-ish, right before the UDL conference, which was, I think, in July, they came out with their updated UDL standards. And the very last row, as you will look at it, you can kind of see it on the side there by the arrow. It says executive function. So that whole row is on executive function skills. And so these are things that have been found are research and evidence that support learning in the environment for everybody. When we define executive function skills, so those of you who were here yesterday, you're going to hear a repeat about things, and I tried as much as possible to change it up, but there's some of the stuff I just have to repeat. But again, one of the things we know is the more we learn things, the more we hear them, the more they're going to stick. So executive function skills are the conscious control of what we think, do, and say. It enables us to think in a flexible manner and be able to deal with social interactions and those things and coordinate our goal setting. And it controls our attention and focus. Right now, you all are using executive function skills, and you all are doing a really pretty good job, right? You guys are focused. And it also allows us to have the ability to think in a flexible manner and deal with frustration. We have a tolerance for frustration. That's one of the things I'm hearing over and over from teachers is kids do not have a tolerance for frustration. Are you seeing that? That as soon as we get frustrated, there's a meltdown. Yeah, because there's this belief of if you can't do it the first time, it's failure. And we really need to work on that no, let's problem solve, let's work on this, those different things. So when we're defining executive functioning skills, it's really what you all are doing and what you did today to get here. Did anybody run into a bump today in your getting here this morning? Anybody? A few of you did. And you still were able to manage, put things together, reorganize, recalibrate. It's kind of like your phone. Like, at least when I was driving the other day in downtown Utah and I would miss my turn, and it would be like recalculating, and looking for a different route to get here. So some things to know about executive function. I'm going to have to hit a stool here a little bit. So some things to know about executive functioning skills, and I'm going to bring it over on this side today, shake it up a little bit, are that children that benefit the most from executive function skills training are the ones that have, sorry, I'm missing some of your faces by doing this, are the ones that have the weakest executive function skills. And so we really need to work on this. And executive function demands need to increase incrementally. Increase a little bit at a time in order to continue to build that. Think of it like a muscle. If you start working out and you grab a weight and it's 5 pounds and you work on that and you never use something besides the 5 pound, you're going to get to a certain level, but that's it. It's not going to grow. It's not going to increase. You're not going to be able to do more and more and more. So executive function skills are the same way, and we want to do that. Repeated practice is the key. We can't just do this once. We can't just do it twice. We need to do it over and over and over until it becomes so routine that we almost don't have to think about some of these things, okay? Again, it's what you did this morning. How many of you stayed here, in a hotel last night? Okay. So if you stayed in a hotel, your routine is a little bit shaken up, right? You're not doing the exact same thing that you normally do. And so you have to use more executive function skills to plan some of those things out. Again, how long is it going to take me to get to the venue from where I am? Because that's different than how long it takes me to get to work. Do I have all my stuff? Oh gosh, I, have travel size instead of regular. And okay, I'm a curly hair girl. Some of the products that I use, they don't make in small little travel size, and I can't just use the stuff that's, believe me, I've tried to use the shampoo. Yeah, okay, thank you. I have tried to use the shampoo that is at the hotel. Let me just tell you, bad move. And so these are things that I have to plan for. I have to have my executive function going for this. Executive function skills are trainable, so it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how old your students are. If you have students that are high school students, you can still work on these skills, and they are trainable regardless of the age of the person. And research shows that the earlier in life we work on these, we are going to see more progress, and there's going to be more impact on academics. So where again were my early childhood people? Awesome. Okay. So you guys are building this foundation, and you're doing this all the time. So it's not about saying, okay, now we're going to have an executive function lesson. It's about building it into what you're doing. All right. Here is an activity we're going to do. So when I started doing this planning or this training, I think it was in 2019, I was working on this for the first time, and I was creating an activity, and it was fall in Kansas, like it is here. Trees change and leaves fall and everything. And I was reading this book called Executive Functions, What They Are and How They Work by Russell Barkley, because I probably own every executive function book there is out there. And I just love reading about executive function skills. So I was reading this, and he talked about these 4 steps that are executive functioning skills. There's volition, using your will, planning, purposeful action, and effective performance. And I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of what you do when you rake leaves, right? When I rake leaves, which I actually don't, when my husband rakes leaves, or we pay somebody in the neighborhood to do it, you have to have the volition, you have to have the will, you have to go, oh, the leaves need to be raked, right? I need to go rake leaves. But I can't just walk outside and rake leaves. I then have to plan for raking leaves, right? I have to plan it, and I have to go, okay, what do I need to rake leaves? I can't just go out there with a rake, right? I'm going to rake them into a pile, and then that's it, right? That's not going to work. I have to think through everything I need. So I have to think, oh, I need a rake, and I need bags, to put them in. And do I have the paper bags that I'm required to put them in, or do I have to go to the store to get those? Do I have the little claw things, what I'm talking about, to grab them and put them in? Do I have long sleeves on? Because when I do leaves, they like scratch my arms and I get itchy. And in Kansas, we have these horrible things called oak mites I don't think you have oak mites here. Somebody was nodding. They know oak mites. But oak mites are these little, you can't see them, but they get into the leaves and then they bite you. Oh, it's horrible. Those and chiggers. So anyway, so I need to do these things. So that's my planning. Then my purposeful action is I go out and rake the leaves. But my effective performance is I have to keep doing it, right? And once you start raking leaves, you don't just have one bag of leaves, you have 25 bags of leaves, right? So this is what executive functioning is. So what I would like you to do is pair up with somebody or by yourself, and I want you to think of an activity. It doesn't have to be a school-based activity. It can be a personal activity, and break it down into these 4 things. So I'm going to give you about a minute and a half.
Okay, hold on. Hey.
All right. Okay, my goal by this point was to be 30 minutes in, and I'm exactly 30 minutes in. So I told the group yesterday I have this weird superpower that would not be a superpower at all unless you do what I do. And I can time trainings to within 2 minutes of a slide. That's my superpower. So my goal is to be 30 minutes in, and we are 35 minutes in, but there was about 5 minutes of introduction stuff. So I think we're doing good. So hopefully we can get through everything. That's always my goal. I hate to have to rush. Okay. Anybody want to share real quick what you talked about? Anybody want to share what you broke something up on? Making dinner. Okay. Okay. Making dinner. Can you give me a few of the steps real quick? Sorry, I told Ken he needed to bring roller skates. He didn't listen to me.
So
Maybe we can go get one of those little cart, that
Is it on?
scooters. Yes.
So we had to decide what we're even having.
What do we have?
Yeah. And do we even want to make it?
Books.
And the planning is like, do I need a crock pot? Do I have the stuff? Do I need to go to the store? What did we say the purpose action was?
To eat on time.
Oh, yeah. Well, and then it's like I used last night where I needed to plan several different like sides, and it ended up taking me 2.5 hours because I don't think I had the right, I didn't do it in the right steps.
Yeah. So all those things, that's executive function. That's a perfect one. Do I have the ingredients I need? And you think you do, and then you don't. And do I have the time? And oh, this is going to take this long to bake, and all those things. So those are executive function skills, and we do that all the time. So what do weak executive function skills look like? Weak executive function skills are when you have difficulty waiting for turns, overly talkative, overly judgmental or insensitive to peers, appear one step behind peers, black and white thinkers, trouble with team sports, limited frustration tolerance, confusion, anxiety, depression, unable to see others' perspectives. Does anybody have a student like this? Raise your hand if you have a student like this. Yeah. And it's not just one anymore, it's lots. And it's not just students with IEPs. It is lots of students, right? We're seeing this over and over and over. So I see a number of people holding their phones up and taking pictures, and yes, keep doing that. I do have the slides available, and I've sent them to Austin. I actually sent him a new set this morning at 7:55. But I do have them on my website, and they're on the SCED as far as like a handout. But I always say, I like when people take pictures of things because one, it means it's meaningful to you. And so you're engaging with it. And then you're going to engage with it a second time. The second time is going to be when you're flipping through it and go, I don't want this anymore, and delete it. Or you're going to go, ooh, I forgot about that. And you're going to read it again. So you're going to engage with it at least twice when you take a picture. So please do that. So this is what weak executive functioning skills look like. So again, when I started doing this training, I was first asked to do it in Illinois, and I was putting the training together, and I loved executive functioning skills. And part of the reason I love executive functioning skills is I actually had a traumatic brain injury when I was 5. And so my first about 3 years of school, I really suffered from some executive function issues and really had to, and that was before we really had to, I'll be honest, it was before 1975. And so we really didn't have special education. And so I just kind of was behind. I was slow. I was in the lowest reading group, whatever the bluebirds or, whatever we called it at the time. I had, those card things. Does anybody remember those card boxes that were rainbow colored? Yes. Yeah. I was always the lowest one, slower than everybody else. And it's because I had issues. I had a traumatic brain injury. I fell and had a pretty major concussion. But then I had to learn these skills and teach myself these skills. And then I always thought I was cheating because I was using these tricks that I learned for executive functioning skills. So as I was reading about executive function skills, I was reading two different books. I was reading the Dawson and Gear book. So if any of you have any of you read Smart But Scattered by Dawson and Gear? It is probably the best book on executive functioning skills. It was created in 2009, but it still is the one that I recommend to people as the starting point. Somebody said something has been muted. Okay. All right. So I was reading that book, and then I was also reading a book by Ross Greene called Lost at School. Lost at School is a book about behavior. Has anybody read Lost at School? Yeah. So it's kind of about how do kids fall through the cracks. It's really, really good. And so I was reading my executive functioning book, and I was also reading this Lost at School book, and I got to a page that had this information. And it said, lagging skills leading to behavioral challenges. So we have handling transitions, sense of time, maintaining focus, impulse, understanding what is being said, flexible thinking. And I'm like, wait a minute. These are all executive functioning skills. But this is a behavior book, not an executive. Oh, that was my light bulb. That when we're talking about behaviors, we are really talking about a lack of executive functioning skills. And he says lagging skills. He just doesn't name them as executive functioning skills. So that was when oh my gosh, that's what we're seeing. That's what's happening. And so when you talk to people about executive functioning skills, often we talk to them about weaknesses in executive functioning skills as behavior. And so behavior is not good or bad. It is regulated or dysregulated. And every summer there is a online training, I guess, called TIFOS. And I don't know what TIFOS stands for. I think the E and the F are executive functioning. I don't know what the rest of it is. But there's a man named Seth, I think it's Perler, and he runs it, and he has a Facebook group, and so that's how I found out about it. But I attended it, and Penny Williams, who did a training or did a section on this, talked about it, and she said, regulated is calm and connected and confident, dysregulated. Warning signs of possible danger are sent to the brain, which causes the body to become out of whack, and then the emotional or survival brain takes over, and we can't access our thinking brain. So when you're in that mode, and we all get into a dysregulated mode, right? Maybe we travel and we get here and we realize we forgot our shoes, or we forgot the pants we were going to wear, or we forgot this, or we forgot that, or you go to work and you realize you have on two different colored shoes, or you forgot to do, or no, this is the one. You didn't get invited to the IEP that's in 30 minutes, and now they want you to attend and talk about assistive technology, right? And you get dysregulated, right? And you get into a place that your emotional brain your survival brain is acting, and you can't access that thinking brain. So for our kids who've had trauma, which are a lot, for our kids who have not had good executive function skills modeled for them, they spend a lot of time in that survival mode, and they are not able to get back to a place of regulation to be able to access that thinking brain. So this information is from Neuroclastic. I wish I had created it because it's fabulous, but I am not that artistic to do this. But Neuroclastic has a website and has these different little pictures, and I loved this and asked if I could use them as long as I kept the reference, and she said yes. So executive function is usually discussed in terms of behavior, right? Organized or disorganized, completes or abandons tasks, impulsive or strategic, late or on time. And we talk about executive function weakness in terms of character and morality, right? We say the kid's lazy. Has anybody had somebody tell them a kid was lazy? Do you just want to, yeah, I know. I'm like, come on, really? They're not lazy. They're probably working harder than anybody else in the class because they're not getting it and they're trying to pull everything together. So we have thoughtful or inconsiderate, responsible or careless, rigid, flexible, poised, interactive, easygoing, picky. It's because of executive functioning weaknesses or executive functioning strengths, right? My daughter is, so I showed you the picture of my children. My children are grown. My daughter is a teacher. When she was in kindergarten, or actually in preschool, she was starting preschool, and I said to the preschool teacher, I want you to know, her name's Heather. I said, Heather's probably going to be she's ready for preschool. She's probably going to be your favorite student. And she's like, yeah. Okay, that's what every parent says. I said, no. What you don't get is Heather was kind of created for preschool. Not that like she has nowhere to go after preschool, but she was created for like sitting and paying attention and rule following. That was what she was like, yeah, sure. And at our first conference, she was like, oh my gosh, you were right. She said, I'm finding myself all the time saying, look what Heather's doing. Look what Heather's doing. And that was what her whole life was like. And I always tell people, because they would go, oh, she's gifted. And I said, no, she's not. She just knows how to do school. If she was gifted in anything, it was executive functioning skills, because she learned the tricks. She learned the game of school and what had to be done, and then applied the academics to it. And so people always saw her as sweet and those kinds of things. And then my son, not that he wasn't sweet, and he has very good executive function skills, but he was the kid who was going to butt up against things. You know, he was going to test the limits. So when we're improving executive function skills, before I get to that, do you guys see this in the schools when we're talking about kids? That people are using these words to talk about them, and when you really think about it and you think about the kid, you're like, oh yeah, maybe it's response inhibition. Maybe, oh, they do have some emotional control things going on. All right, so we're going to talk about how do we actually improve executive functioning skills. So one of the biggest ways we improve executive functioning skills is to provide external supports so that you can learn those supports and internalize those, okay? That is a good thing. What happens is when we do external supports and we don't pull them back, or we have people become the external supports. And I talked about this yesterday with the group, but oftentimes when we have kids with significant behavioral challenge, with significant executive functioning things, what is the thing that everybody wants for that child? One-on-one aid. Okay, we're not going to teach the kid the skills. We're going to put an adult with them to become their executive functioner, right? That's really what we're saying when we do that. And it would be fine if that person we put with them was working on skills to develop executive function and we gradually pulled them back. But in my experience, that's rarely what happens. That person becomes their executive functioner. That person is it's time to get out your notebook. It's time to let me just get your pencil for you. It's time to do this. It's time to do this. They don't even say what are the steps. They say, here are the steps, right? Here's what you need to do. And so we don't give kids the opportunity. But when we do external supports and we learn to then internalize them, we are then able to, I just realized I put a slide in the other day that didn't save at home that has a picture I really want. Darn it. Okay. I was telling Austin that I worked on this on Thursday night, on Friday night, I think, before I left on Saturday, and none of the stuff I added to it saved, and I was in Google, so that was weird. And I just realized there was a picture I really wanted to show you, so maybe I'll throw it in for the afternoon one that really goes with this. But those external supports. So the picture I was thinking of is I'm working on a book study with another teacher in Kansas, and she was telling me that her son, she made cards for him because he's a basketball player. And sometimes he plays on the varsity or suits up for varsity. Sometimes he plays JV. Sometimes he's on the freshman team. And they all have different uniforms and different things for practices. So she made little cards for him. And it says like varsity, which uniforms he needs. JV, which uniform, this kind of thing. And they're laminated and they're in his backpack. And she said originally he was like, seriously, Mom? And she's like, just take them. And then he started using them. And she would say, did you look at that? Which one do you need? And so she gave him that external. And now he internalizes that. He doesn't need to look at them. But when he's in that place where his survival brain is working and he's kind of out of whack, he has them there available to go, oh, they just told me that I'm going to be dressing up for JV today. And do I have my right stuff? And he can look at that real quick and go, okay, yeah, that's what I need. And then recenter himself to that. So that's what we want those external supports to be, so that we can start internalizing. So when we look at teaching executive function skills, we need to teach to the deficit skill. Where are my resource teachers again? If somebody comes to you and says, Bobby has trouble with reading, what are you going to do? Yeah, we're going to do interventions to figure out what targeted skill. Reading is a big thing. Is it comprehension? Is it decoding? Is it this? And then we're going to target that, and we're going to work on that skill and teach to the deficit skill. We're not just going to assume it's going to happen, right? So we need to teach to it. We're going to model it. So executive function skills is different in that we have to model things for them to, for kids to see them and learn them. That's how most of us learned, is through our exposure, seeing other people do them, seeing our parents doing them, seeing I can think of my mom cooking. You brought up the cooking. My mom was a very good cook. And she would be like, oh, tonight for dinner, in the morning, she would be like, tonight for dinner, we're going to have chicken, and we're going to have this. And I need to go to the grocery store and make sure that I have this and this and this. So I heard that and was like, oh, that's what you do when you plan, and don't just go, what is for dinner tonight at 6 o'clock and I have nothing defrosted, right? We need to consider the child's development level. Again, move from that external to internal, modify tasks to meet the child's capacity for effort. We don't want to put things in front of students that are way too difficult, that they don't have the capacity to do. We want to get them to that point of success with just a little bit of room to grow. And then we need to give them some control. Let them make some choices of how they're going to do those things. If we come at a student and say, okay, you're going to start organizing your notebook and this is how you're going to organize it, well, that's probably not going to work. It's like if somebody comes to me and says, this is how you're going to do your calendar for work, that's not how I want to do my calendar. That's not what works for me. Now, if you give me the goal of, Paige, you need to organize your calendar so that you're on time for events, okay, now let me do it and figure out what works for me. So we want to make sure we're clear about our goal, but then give the student control and how to do that. So here are some executive function strategies. Here's 11 different executive function skills that Dawson and Gear have identified. We're going to focus on about 3 of them today. So we're going to talk about the same 3 that we did yesterday, but we're going to talk about them a little bit more in context of the whole classroom. And then this afternoon, if you come to the session that I'm doing in the afternoon, we're going to get to sustained attention, planning, prioritizing, organizing. I can't remember what the other one is. Maybe time management. I can't remember if we're getting to that one or not. So, but these are 11 skills identified by Dawson and Gear. Russell Barkley has done meta-analysis of different executive functioning skills research and has found that there's actually 33 different executive function skills identified in the research. So unlike reading or language or different areas in education, it is not like these are the 3 executive function skills. So depending on who you read is going to depend on which skills they talk about. I have one book that I'm doing a book study on, and they talk about executive functioning skills and response inhibition. And I'm like, well, response inhibition is an executive functioning skill. So it just is really going to depend, depending on who you're looking at. So one of the focuses I like to take on executive functioning skills is how do we set up the environment so that we are embedding executive function skills in it? Because again, it isn't about, okay, now we're going to do a lesson on response inhibition. So I am going to have you do this. That's not how it works. We have to embed it in what we do. And again, we want to take that approach of the universal design for learning, because this isn't just good for 1 or 2 kids. This is good for all kids, because because everybody needs executive functioning skills. So these are some different things that I have actually taken pictures in classrooms. One of the things I love to do is go into schools and observe in the classroom and kind of write down what I see supporting executive functioning skills, and ask some coaching questions on, well, how could you include this? How could you include this? Tell me a little bit more about, right? So the picture on your left is actually from my daughter's classroom. She is currently a 6th grade math teacher. She just accepted a high school math position. But she is a 6th grade math teacher, and that is from her classroom. And so she has a little like hub. I like to call them hubs. And so she has in there, she has pencils, she has, dry erase markers, all those things. On the bottom left-hand side, you see a drawer that has green things in it. Those are deodorant wipes. Is that not brilliant? So when kids, 6th graders, April, May, a little smelly in there. So she'll say to a student, why don't you grab one of those and go to the bathroom? And so they can just grab them. And she started having to tell kids, you have to put on your deodorant at home first. Don't just use these all the time. So she has that just readily available for students. And then over here on the other side is a student center where the kids can go, they can look, they can get the resources. So the idea of a classroom hub is that you have things in the same location. There's a routine. You have a schedule where it can be seen, and it's in the same place. Kids know where to look. They know where to find it. The materials they need for today and tomorrow, write that where they can see them. Write assignments where they can always be seen and in the same location. This is a visual about visuals. Okay. I did not create it again. I wish I did. It's from a company, or not a company. It's from a website called North Star Paths. It is free. If you go to North Star Paths, I do not know who this person is. And there's a drop down that says free resources or free downloads. There are so many fabulous ones. There's another one that says something about I love visuals or something like that. There's a lot of AAC stuff and different things. So this is a visual about visuals. And so it talks about the importance of them. Visuals are permanent because as soon as we speak, those words are gone, right? So if I say to the student, I need you to get your notebook, your paper, your pencil, and grab your iPad. And while you're doing that, I think you might need a charger. Huh? All I heard was charger. And so I just maybe sit there because I don't know what she's talking about related to a charger. And I'm like, well, I think they're a football team. And then I'm daydreaming, right? But if I have it written down and say, this is what you need, either pictures or words or something like that, and the kids know where they can look to get that, they can always look to get it. Then when they need to access it, they can. So this is a great visual about visuals. It talks about visuals help reduce anxiety. How many of you use a calendar? How many of you have your calendar on your person right now? How many of you would fight me if I took your calendar and told you you couldn't have it the rest of the week? Yeah. Look at that handbag. Yeah. We all use them. Visuals are not just pictures. They're even writing, right? We all use them every day. So here's some visuals, again, pictures I've taken in classrooms. These are real classrooms. The one on the left is from a school district in Illinois that I've been doing executive function training with. And so this is a teacher just wrote the schedule down. So it was November of 23, and here's the daily lesson. They have a sign in, sign out for bathroom. And I think the 1 and 2 is like, I don't know. I'll be honest. I'm making that up. So they have that written. I have a friend who's a teacher in Kansas, and she told me she does this. And one of the things she adds to it, and I thought this was brilliant, is she adds in there, because they do rotations, there's an English or whatever, if there's a sub in one of the classes. So she'll tell the kids, hey, there's a sub in math today. So that they know and can prep, it's not going to be this teacher. It's not going to be this environment. This is what I can plan for. She also goes through the schedule and tells them if there's anything different. So I always tell people, orient to the schedule every day, even if the schedule is not different. You just go, hey, let's look at our schedule today. We don't have anything different today. So now it's visually there. I've told you there's nothing different. And if you're somebody who has anxiety about change, what can you do now? You can relax. You can relax. But if there is something different and I go, hey, let's look at our schedule today. You guys are going to see that our lunch is at 10:55 to 11:55. Oh, lunch recess. 10:55 to 11:55 today. We're doing that a little bit early because we have because the fourth grade is going on a field trip and we had to change with them. So we're going to be a little bit early on lunch today. So again, now if change bothers me, you've told me, you're not just kind of throwing it at me. On this other side, this is actually from my daughter's classroom. I had the opportunity one time to go and spend a day. I tried to go spend a day in her classroom. My husband or I go spend a day in her classroom every year. And so this was her classroom, and she is a sixth grade math teacher, and they do rotations. And the question the kids ask every day when they walk in her room is, what are we doing today? So she has a section that says, what are we doing today? And so she wrote it up, and then when they're done with it, she crosses it off. And this was right before winter break, so they had a countdown going. So again, something as simple as that. Yeah. Yeah, secret sauce. I love that. Secret sauce. Doesn't that make it sound? But it not only helps the students, it helps the teachers too, right? Because if a student, what are we doing? What are we doing? There you go. You know where it is. I've written it down. I know what the plan is. I love that because it just grounds everybody. So again, easy peasy, timers. If there is nothing else that is added to a classroom but a timer, you're going to hit almost every executive function skill in some format.
Asking what the secret sauce was.
Somebody in the chat was asking about the secret sauce.
It's actually just Thousand Island dressing. No, sorry. Those visuals she had up there not only help the students, but they help the teachers too, with the teachers' executive functioning skills.
Yeah. If we were in the Midwest, the secret sauce would be ranch with maybe a little extra garlic. I did find out, do you guys have Papa Murphy's here? Yeah, I did find out that their chicken, ranch, whatever, the sauce stuff that they do that you think is actually just ranch dressing with extra garlic in it. So that they put on there. I know, isn't that kind of cool? Okay, so timers. So there's timers. There are timers, that's a YouTube timer. You can just put up there. When I was telling you, hey, we're going to do this for 1.5 minutes, just doing timers releases anxiety for people. Actually, some people tell me it actually causes anxiety for them. Another one, has anybody heard of classroom screens? How am I doing on time? I'm doing pretty good. Classroom screens. You have? Okay, do you use it? You don't. A teacher you work uses classroom screens. Okay, I'm going to share with you guys this really cool tool. So Classroom Screens is a website. It is free. Okay, let me get to it. I need to move this so that I can see what I'm doing. Okay. So here's Classroom Screens. Classroom Screens is free. It has 26 different widgets to it. And it has 26 different widgets to it. The free version is free. And you get access to all the widgets. The only difference with the free version and the paid version is the free version, you can't make things and save them ahead of time. So the paid version allows you to prep and save it ahead of time. Now, what my daughter told me is if you just never close the tab, kind of thing. But I'm a tab closer. If you want the paid version, it's $29.90 for a year. So less than, $3 a month. And it's really, really fabulous. So let me show you what this is. This was actually from a training that I did in Illinois. So sometimes I use this for my presentation. So it has these different clocks that you can put on it. So all these things down here at the bottom are options plus these additional ones. Sorry, I know you guys can't see this on my screen, but I can see it and it's bothering me. Okay, so these different widgets and options. And so you make these different slides. So this one has lots of different timers. So if I wanted to do time, I could just do that and it would start the time. I have this one that looks like a time timer and it's going to do it. I have just a clock. Then you can also set things up. So I did that activity, that volition one, gave people 2 minutes, just pre-going. My daughter uses this for her lesson plans. She sets it up and puts her timers, her different things. They also have some really cool things. They have randomizers where you can go in and you can put names in. So if I wanted to open this up, I actually have some of this. So, we'll do this. I have assistive technology teams. I have some lists. I have 16 names on it. And that's the one I want to do. I am going to say now randomize. And it's picking the name of a person. You can also, with these different things, you can do groups. You can group people together, but you can go into the settings and say, like, don't put John and Ray together. Right? Do a group of 3, but don't put those 2 together. So it has those different pieces in it. And so a teacher could set this up for their class. You know, what are some environmental supports? And here's a timer. You can, again, here's timers. I have lots of timers on them. You can add information. You can add websites. You can change the background. You can do polls. You can do a sound level meter. I'm not going to do that right now. You can do a sound level meter. I have too many things open on here. Oh, stop. Okay. You can do a stoplight. So like, okay, guys, no talking right now. You can do a whisper talking. You can do that. So there's all these different widgets that you could do. And a teacher, again, I'm thinking a gen ed teacher or a sped teacher that you're running a classroom could utilize this to help build those executive function supports in the class and be modeling these for students. So it has these things really built in and are helpful for students. All right, so I am going to give you guys just a real, let's kind of just talk through this. So one of the things, like I said, I love to go into general ed classrooms and observe and kind of look and go, ooh, this supports executive functioning, this. So on my website, you will find a executive function sheet that has all the different areas, and then you can write in what are things in that classroom or in your classroom that support executive functioning skills. This would also be a great planning tool for teams. So if you have a student that maybe is on an IEP that you're doing some executive function things with, or you have a student that you're doing MTSS with, and you're doing some executive function supports and you're meeting as a team and talking about it, this is a great tool that you can go, okay, let's talk about what's already in the environment. Okay, so if any of you are fans of the set, this kind of helps and supports that. What's already built into the environment? Do we have any timers? Does the teacher have a classroom hub where the student knows to get materials? Does the student need to have a special area marked off where they can go sit? What does that look like? So what are some environmental supports that you have seen in place in classrooms that you would go, oh, I can see that would support executive functioning skills? Anybody have any they can think of? And we have Ken who's going to be running up and down the aisles with the microphone. Okay, Ken, all the way in the back. We're getting your steps in. Thank you, Kent.
Defined areas and like just that, like you said, the classroom setup. There's a really good, we have the LRBI manual in Utah that has a teacher checklist that has very great ideas, and you get to rate yourself. And so that's a really good one, but it has all these things that relate to the executive function.
So you get to rate yourself, you said?
Yeah, it's for your own improvement. So you kind of say, okay, how good do I have this set up in my room? And it has these executive functioning things, but like defined areas. Do I use a schedule, like a visuals in my room? Do I use these things? And then you kind of prioritize and improve. But
so are you guys familiar with this manual? Some of you are. What is it called again?
The LRBI, the Least Restrictive Behavioral Intervention Manual.
Least Restrictive Behavioral Intervention Manual. I'm going to have to pull that off. So if you don't know about it, that sounds
amazing. It's amazing.
Fabulous. Wow. I will tell you, Utah is known for having some pretty cool educational stuff nationally. People are like, oh, Utah, well, they have this and they have this. And it's like, so yeah. Okay. Anything else? Do people see teachers using timers? Yeah, yeah. So I was in a general education classroom in Illinois, and it was actually a number of them when I was there. And from elementary up through high school, they were pulling timers up and using timers. And one of the teachers, it was fun. It was a second grade class. You knew this was a routine that they did, and she had a timer on there that was like a Mario Kart or something. And so she turned it on, and the kids knew as soon as she turned that on, that meant that they had 5 minutes or whatever it was to get their stuff together at the end of the day. But that if they were in their seats with all of their stuff ready when the timer ended, it was like this roller coaster thing or some dance stuff, and all the kids were rushing around to get done at that point so that they could be in their seats and do the little whatever the action was. So it was this great routine they had. And then I had another teacher who was a like 7th grade math teacher who had a time timer in her room that was like on a big magnet and just up there. So when kids were working, she just turned it, or would say to somebody, hey, go turn the timer on. So again, it's a support for some that is needed as an executive or as an assistive technology tool, right? But it is a support for many that they find it useful. And that's one of the principles with UDL. Okay, so here's some examples of, these were some things that I found when I was in Utah in classrooms. So their emotional control, there was a calm down center. And so I was like, wow, this was really nice and a great option for students. So I went and sat at the back of the room, and there was a little table, and a young man that I think was one of my friends, and he was sitting there and he was using it. And I was like, well, what are you doing? And he said, well, this is our calm down center. I was like, oh. And I said, well, are you sitting back here because you want to sit back here? Did your teacher ask you to come back here? And he goes, no, I knew I needed to. And so he was just sitting back there, and they had a little timer, and he set the timer, and he was playing with a fidget, and when it went off, he put the fidget away, closed the timer, and went back to the seat. And then I saw another student who went back there at one point and was able to do that. So these are some different things. One of the teachers, when they were doing, it was a math teacher, said to a student, they gave a math answer, and one of the things she always said to the students is, okay, great, now back it up. So what that meant was, tell me what your thought process was for that. And I loved that, because the kids got in the routine of having to back up how they got the answer, which is supporting working memory. And then she would ask another student, so do you agree or disagree, and explain? So again, it's using that working memory, it's using that problem solving, it's using those discussions and modeling that. So these are some different things that I saw in that classroom. So we're going to jump into teaching response inhibition. We've got about 20 minutes, so I'm hoping I get through all this stuff. So I may have to fly through some things to get. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. Okay. So in teaching response inhibition, we want to have delayed gratification and planned waiting periods, having kids earn things they want. One of the things we'll talk about in the afternoon session is the decrease we have seen because of technology in our ability to have sustained attention. And so that's one of the things we're seeing in the classroom and that impacts response inhibition. So we want to do role playing. We want to cue before we enter the situation, right? We want to, this is what we do with our young kids when you're going, okay, we're going to be going into grandma's house. And this is what we had to do with my kids. My mom had a bunch of crystal laying around, and my kids called my mom Nene. And so the crystal was called Nene's no-nos. And so we would go in, before we would go in, we would say to the kids, okay, remember, no touching Nene's no-nos. And so, they were there, but they weren't supposed to touch them, and we would have to cue them. And as you saw the little hand, we would go, oh, Nene's no-nos. And, I would be like, Mom, can't you put the crystal up? But eventually my kids learned not to touch it, and there was nothing ever broken. So we cue before we enter a situation. We plan ahead. We use social stories. Hey, we're going to the theater today. Has anybody written for a social story for a student that's going on a field trip of some kind? Yeah, okay, we're getting on a bus. We're going to this location. When we're on the bus, you're going to sit in the seat. You're going to have somebody sit next to you, or you're not going to have somebody sit next to you. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. That is planning and teaching response inhibition. So on my website, I have, and on the YouTube channel that I have, again, I say YouTube channel, there's like 10 videos on there. It sounds way more exciting than it is. But I did this when I was working with a district and created some videos for them then to be able to use in their classroom. So I did training for the entire district, and then we did executive function skills throughout the school year, and they tried to embed them in the classroom. So I have some response inhibition videos and some emotional control videos. One, there's a response inhibition parent overview or adult overview. Just what is it? What does it look like? And then I have some that are geared towards students. I will tell you, what I did for those, and I told the group yesterday, what I did for those is I put my ideas in Chat GPT and told it to write me a script for ages 5 to 10. So the script is a little corny. I think for there's some, I think, time management ones that it talks about the WISE widget. And so then I used some tools in Canva and another one called, I think, Toonly to create the videos. So it's not me talking. You hear my voice in some of them, but then I used AI voices in some of them too. So check those out, see if they're helpful, show them to students, give me feedback, let me know, but you can do that. And again, they're free. You can share them with anybody. So this is something when we're looking at response inhibition that was in a classroom. And so what happened is the kids earned money, and then they could use that money to do things. So they earned money for different things. And what this is teaching related to response inhibition, again, the goal was not teaching response inhibition. The goal was that the kids earned money for things, and then they have the option to save it, hold on to it, and then earn different things. So that's exactly here. And that is teaching response inhibition. I can't just spend my money as soon as I get it, as much as we would all like to do that. We know there are things we have to save for, and that's real life. So they built that into the classroom. Questions on response inhibition? Is this familiar to you? You're going, yeah, Paige, this isn't rocket science. But again, think of it, put a little bit different lens on it of, oh, this kid who's blurting, you have a blurter, it's response inhibition. What do we need to do? We need to put some waiting time in there. We need to have some plans for them. We need to talk to the child about, hey, you're doing this, not just you are a behavior problem. Hey, I noticed that you are talking out of turn. One of the things that I talked about yesterday in relationship to blurting was a lot of times everybody in the class is blurting at one time or another. It's just the kids that are identified as blurters don't know how to do it correctly. Okay, an appropriate way to blurt or talk out without raising your hand. On topic, know when the pause is happening, and don't do it too often, right? Our kids who are identified as blurters are off topic, don't know when to do it, and do it too often. But really, when you take data, sometimes there's other kids in the class who are actually doing it more often than our kids who are labeled as blurters, but they know how to do it. So the thing I tell kids is, let's figure out how to do it. Let's figure out what is appropriate. If you have an idea and you want to blurt it out, you can't just blurt it out. You have to remember it for when it's appropriate, when there's a pause. And I had one student say, I'll forget it. And I said, let's get a Post-it note and write it down. And then when there is a pause, when it's appropriate, then you can look at your Post-it note and you can say what it is. Now, is that a skill that has to be taught? Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. So working memory, working memory. So we need to get the students' direct attention, keep distractions to a minimum, rehearse things, build that working memory. Teaching an inner voice. We all have an inner voice. There are some people who don't have inner voices and some people who don't have inner visual pictures, but most of the people have an inner voice. How many of you talk to yourself on a regular basis? Yeah, that's your inner voice, right? But we need to teach kids what that inner voice is doing. So we do that by talking out loud. Like I said, what my mom did with the kid, cooking or something. So what that looks like in the classroom, that could be, oh gosh, guys, the weather is going to be changing and tomorrow it's supposed to snow. So we want to make sure we are ready for that by having our snow clothes, or, in Kansas, they call school for snow. So we need to take our technology home. We need to do this. We need to do this. So talking out loud when you're doing it, verbally reflecting on things, going, you know what? I was when I walked in today, I said to Austin, I'm sorry, I meant to be here about 8:15. A little bit before 8, I was, and he goes, I know what you were doing. He said, you were changing your slides, because I was emailing him things. And so I said, yeah, I was changing my slides and this. So I was verbally reflecting on what were the things that had slowed me down, right? Another thing we do is imagery, create mental images. How many of you, if I said, I want you to drive from here to the hotel, for those of you who stayed, can you create a mental image of how to do that? The hotels were pretty close. Can you create a mental image? If I ask you to create a mental image from your house to how you drive to work, are you able to create a mental image of that? Turn here, turn here, right? We used to give directions in that way. We don't anymore. So how do you all visualize the months of the year? I love doing this activity, and I want people to do it in a classroom with kids because it's really interesting. How do you visualize the months of the year? The same way you see them on the back of the calendar. So like January, February, March, April, May, June. Yeah. Oh, somebody's doing this. They see them as a circle. Yeah. By seasons. Okay. So by seasons so if you're looking at winter, does it start with December? Yeah, so winter starts with December, so she does them by seasons. So the point in this is we all visualize it, but we all visualize it differently. You can actually find some things on YouTube where there was a group of engineers that they asked this question, and they used a whiteboard and explained how they visualized the months of the year. There's some crazy visualization from those engineers, but it was really actually very interesting and comical. So everyone does it differently. So this is a fun activity to do in class because it helps people realize, and students realize, not everyone sees it the same way that they do, and it starts them on that journey of thinking about what they do and how they think. Here's another thing you can do with students. This is actually an idea from Sarah Ward, who is an executive functioning guru and is fabulous. So if you ever get the opportunity to see her, I highly recommend it. But this is a picture of my friend Quentin, and there is Quentin on the side, not ready to go to flag football practice, and then Quentin on this side, ready to go to flag football practice. And it's called head to toe. I call it head to toe, ready to go. So head to toe, ready to go. Quentin, what do you need? Well, he needs his hat, he needs his mouth guard, he needs his football, his flags, his shorts, and his cleats. You take a picture of a student not ready to go and a picture of them ready to go, and then it is their opportunity to match themselves to that head to toe ready to go. You're providing that external support so that then they can start visualizing it. I did this as I was packing for this trip, right? I visualized, and okay, so the clothes I'm going to wear, I'm going to take these, I'm going to take this, I need to take this technology, I need to do these different things. We're using imagery. These are pictures from my daughter's classroom. We have what does it look like ready and what does it look like not ready in her classroom. So she said, Mom, the not ready was a pretty easy picture to get, but she had to kind of manipulate the ready. But if she had this up in her classroom and says to a kid, hey, you need to match your desk to ready, now I have a visual in place. I am not yelling at kids, get out your pencil, this and this. Yes.
Oh, wow. But she needs to stay friends with her because that girl has got her crap together. Like, I didn't even remember that FBLA,
I like that.
Future Business Leaders of America.
One of the things you can do is take that picture, use a tool on the internet to remove the background so that you don't see the, water fountain and all that kind of stuff. So then it's just visually only the things they need. I love that. Do that and send it to me. No, but I know there are tools. But yeah, those kinds of things, thinking about that, going, ooh, what is going to distract kids? Has anybody used Rocket Books? Yeah, so I love Rocket Books. Rocket Books are a great tool that we can use. Does anyone know Jane Corsten? I just got a text from Jane. She's probably wanting to talk about our next presentation that we need to do. Anyway, so Rocket Books are fabulous because what they are is you can write on them and then you can wipe off. So they're like only 10 or 20 pages. So if you have kids who are always losing their pages, always losing the paper, this is one notebook that is small. They can write on it, you tag it, and then you use your phone or you can use your iPad and you take a picture of it that zooms it sends it to wherever you tell it to go. I do this when I'm a clinical fellowship supervisor for a student or for a speech path, and I was taking notes and stuff, and I had it filled up, and so I was like, oh, I need to wipe this off, and you just take a damp washcloth and wipe it off and clean it, and then you can use it again. So check it out. I have a student that I worked with that used this to take her notes in class and everything. It became her assistive technology tool. They're only $30 to $45. You can get them at like Office Depot, Office Max, Amazon, and those kinds of things. When pre-COVID, when I was out in the schools and doing a lot of moving around to different buildings, this is how I would take notes. And then I would click them in so that I only had to take one notebook. Post-it notes on your phone or on your iPad. Has anybody used these? The Post-it note app. So the Post-it note app is very fun, okay? I am a Post-it note gal. Like when I retired, I realized I had a Post-it note problem because I have a lot of Post-it notes and I kept finding more and more. But one of the things that I often would do, and I do this when I'm planning trainings and everything, is I use those big white papers with the Post-it notes and everything. What you can do with the Post-it note app is then you can take a picture of it and it will take that and turn it digital. And then you can move them around. You can also use it and just create everything digitally. So if you have a student who needs to organize a presentation, organize a paper, organize thoughts, those kinds of things, the Post-it note app is free. You can do it on a phone, you can do an iPad. Also with Post-it notes, there are stickies on Chromebooks, on MacBooks, all those kinds of things that are not the Post-it note app. And I'll talk about this in the session in the afternoon, but I had a student who actually used that to help her organize what she needed in each class. And so just using tools like that, again, for her, it became her assistive technology that she needed, because when she did not need it, she started failing her, or when she did not use it, she started failing her classes. But when she used it, she was able to pass her classes and actually graduated early. And it was nothing more than using Post-it notes on her computer and using things like that. So those are a few tools. When we look at regulating emotions, what we want to do is talk about emotions. We want to talk about the expected plan. What are we going to do? How are you expected to work if you're overwhelmed? What are you going to do? Give the child a script. Talk about how you need to regulate the environment. If it's too hot, it's too cold, it's too loud, it's too whatever, we can see emotions being hard. These are things you've probably seen in schools and are familiar with, right? You have seen the zones of regulation, you've seen calm down corners. And when you're doing this, you are modeling, right? You are giving those verbal things. Hey, I see you are in the yellow zone right now. What do we need to do to help you get back into the green zone? You know what? I think it would be really good if you took a walk around real quick and took some deep breaths, and because I know that's something that really helps and supports you. That is teaching emotional regulation. That is teaching response inhibition. So those things that you are naturally doing that are social emotional learning are going to be supporting executive functioning emotional regulation. Are any of you familiar with Monarch Reader? Monarch Reader used to be Tar Heel Reader. Familiar with Tar Heel? Okay, so Tar Heel was, I don't know if I want to say bought, but was moved over to Monarch Reader, which is now owned by Building Wings. Sorry, I was going to say Don Johnston, but it's now the Building Wings thing. And so they have it. It is still almost exactly to what Tar Heel was. And they have lots and lots of free books that people have created that talk about different emotions, those kinds of things. Students can create their own books on it. So it's a really great tool that you can use that is related to executive functioning skills and assistive technology. So there's one called Colored Emotions that talks about different colors and how those go with different emotions. I would tell you, always look over the books ahead of time before you give them to students, as we would with anything. I'm not going to say there's anything bad in there, but you do just want to make sure that you have viewed it and that it is hitting what you want it to hit. There was one time I pulled one up for a student and I thought it was like a Halloween one, and it actually got kind of dark. And so you just always want to do a quick overview of those. But again, students can create their own book. So you could say to a student, okay, let's create a book about emotions. Let's create a book about this. And then they can use it. It can either be read to them, they can add pictures to it. And so it's really a great tool, and it's free. We like free things, right? So Monarch Reader is a great tool. Like I said, executive function and social emotional learning activities. How many of your districts do social emotional learning and you have a social emotional curriculum? Yeah, most of them, right? So one of the things I tell people all the time is this is not about doing more, it's about doing different. Okay, it's not about adding more, it's about adding something different. And so what we want to do is just put a lens of executive functioning on those social emotional learning activities that you are already doing. All right, accessibility, we're almost done. I've got 2 minutes, but I'm going to probably go a couple minutes over. Accessibility features, teaching students accessibility features in their devices. How does this relate to emotional control? Let me tell you how it relates to emotional control. I had a student one time who was a behavior problem. I mean, behavior was an issue for the student. He was in high school and I was working with him on AT, and he told me, I would rather people think I'm a bad kid than know I can't read. So how does it relate to emotional control? It does. So let me teach you the features to allow you to have the information read to you. So now you don't have to act up in class and cover up the fact that you're not able to read this. Let me show you how you can enlarge your font so that you can read it better. Let me show you how you can change the background color so maybe it doesn't bother your eyes. So teaching accessibility features, and usually kids know them on their own, but teaching those and helping kids find what they need is going to help them be able to be in a place that their emotions are hopefully not going to be heightened and they can be in that thinking brain. All right, a couple last things. Is anybody familiar with Goblin Tools? Yeah, okay, so Goblin Tools was actually created, and we are going to go a couple minutes over, and I apologize on that. But Goblin Tools was actually created for people who are neurodivergent. And there's a bunch of different things. So we have Magic to Do, Formalizer, Judge. We have a Chef. So with Chef, you can go in and pop in the food, ingredients you have, and it will give you a recipe. It's really pretty cool. But Magic to Do, and this is free. Right now it's free. You go in and put in what you need to do, and then this is called the spice meter. You can tell it how spicy or how neurodivergent you are and how much support that you need it to give you, right? So I am going to do an item of packing for a trip. So for your students who need help and support, I'm going to do packing for a trip. I gave it a spice meter there. I am going to actually say, okay, I want you to estimate it. And it estimated it at 2 hours for me. And if I say, okay, well, I want you to, let's see. I want to do this, and I am having it break it down for me. It now broke everything down that I'm supposed to do, and now I have a checklist of all the different things I have to do. So for your student who's like, I don't know where to start, I don't know how to do it. Okay, this is AI. And one of the things you do want to be careful with AI is not using it with students if it's getting privacy and data. And honestly, on this one, I don't know. But you could use it with them. You're logged in on yours, create it, and then send it to the student to be able to use. So you can do that. It also has a formalizer, so you can write what you really want to say to somebody in here, and then tell it to be more professional, and it's going to modify it. Yeah, we did this at a State Department of Ed thing in Kansas, and we had some SPED directors get pretty spicy and say things that they might really want to say and say now become formal, and it did that. So it was actually really fun. And then they have one that's called the Judge, where you can put something in and see what tone is it actually using. So that's Goblin Tools. Play with it, and yeah, give me feedback. Again, it's free, but it's a really good tool. Again, you're not necessarily going to want to put students directly on this, but you can use it and show students how they can can use technology to help support them. All right, here's my last thing. So we are at 10:32, so not too bad. So what I would like to know is what resonated with you today. So hopefully you can use this QR code. If not, it's a Padlet, and it's at padlet.com/P Buckingham, Kansas/behavior. So there are 3 questions there. One is, what did you learn from today that you didn't know? Another one is, what are you going to use from today? And another one is, do you have any questions? You do not have to answer all 3, but if you could answer one of those 3 things. On the do you have any questions, if you put your email address on there, I will respond to you directly, because unfortunately it just has things like sarcastic salamander. And I don't know who the I know who the sarcastic, you know who the sarcastic, no, but I don't know who that is. So the ones from yesterday, if you go back on it, I have responded to a lot of those. But if you want me to respond to you directly, put your email address in there or email me directly and ask your question, and I'm more than happy to answer it. Again, a number of people asked questions of how can we get you to come to our district, and just email me directly. All right, we are finished with the morning, and I thank you guys very much. Again, I hope there is something from this. This wasn't new information, but I hope there was something from this that resonated with you in a way that you're like, oh, yeah. And then how does this relate to assistive technology? Well, it relates to assistive technology because our students often have assistive technology or have executive dysfunction. If we have students who have ADHD, students on the autism spectrum, they are going to have executive dysfunction, and those things and those behaviors are often in place, and putting the technology and AT in place that they need is going to help them be able to regulate and do things independently. So thank you very much. Have a great rest of the day, and hopefully I will see you in an afternoon session. So